Okay, this is a short video on how to convert these basic little foggers that you pick up in, CVS and places like that into something a bit more useful. So these little foggers here, they're 400 watts, they're not super powerful. But if you've got several of them, they can make a decent amount of fog, or they're good for individual effects, that's for sure. Now when they're plugged in, they're filled with juice. The only way to get your fog out is either you hold this switch, in which case it will give you some fog, or they usually come with a little remote control. You can press the button. But if you want to use them as any part of automated setup, maybe you want them activated when someone pushes their foot down on a trigger plate, for example, then we need to adapt them a little bit. So fancy fog machines have connectors for external wires to turn them on and off, but these things don't. But it's awfully easy to do, and I'm going to show you what to do today. What you're going to do is you're going to put a switch in parallel with this one. Simple as that. When this is pressed together, two switch contacts touch. They cause the mechanism to work. All we're going to do, we're going to put wires on the back of this switch, pull it out through a hole in this back of this fogger and out so we can control it. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the thing apart. Very easy to do. Looks like on this one there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws, and on this model it's actually a little Torx bit, a T5 maybe, I don't really know. I'll take this apart, show you the insides, and then show you what to do. Okay, so the screws are out. Now one thing to note, it's difficult to get into until you get the fog reservoir out. So take the lid off, take little rubber bung, then you can lift the whole lid out the top, leave the reservoir there. And what you get to in here, in this particular model, they've actually got a connector. I'm just going to unplug that connector, put this aside, and here we go. So this is a control board. That's the infrared port. That's a light to say it's ready for fogging. If you look inside, there's a small chip inside here which is basically controlling it. And if we look on the back of the switch, here are the two terminals of the switch. All I'm going to do is put some wires on these two terminals and then come out through a hole. Now sometimes there's a nice useful hole we can just put the thing out of, the wire out of. Other times there isn't. This one I would say is not got any hole I can come out of. It would probably be better if I come out this back plate. This is actually a visual of the reservoir fullness, so that's no use. So I'm going to drill a small hole in this back plate suitable for the cable. Going to put a little rubber grommet on there as well. So I'm going to get those pieces together and show you what to do. Okay, so what I've got some wire here, just simple 2-core wire like speaker wire or bell wire. I've got a small grommet which the cable can pass through. That's just to protect it when it's pushed through. A zip tie to basically secure the cable inside so it can't be pulled out. I am going to drill a 5mm hole in here so that I can pass the cable through, and then I'll run out maybe 2 meters of cable, something like that. It can be easily extended later, so it really doesn't matter if you're putting out 6 inches or 20 feet. Put out what you need. Okay, so put my grommet through, put my cable through, leave ourselves a reasonable amount of length inside. It's probably about 6 inch. Strip the wires. I'm going to tin those with solder. I'll give you a close-up where we're going on here. Just here and here, the two pins from the back of that switch. So I'm just simply going to put my solder wires onto here and here. I'm going to make sure there's enough room here for us to actually get to it. We can tuck the cable in a little bit later, but for now, don't make it too short. So I put my wire out really long here. I'm going to get some solder on the back of these switch contacts. Both of them. There we go. Then just going to put this on there and melt the two together basically. One's done. And the next one's done. Now, before anything, just make sure those wires are nicely separated and good and soldered. Give them a little tug. Yeah, they're going to come off. They're going to come off straight away. Now you see I left a lot of cable there to do that job. What I'm going to do is now put this other connector back in. Can't see unless I zoom out. Hang on. There we go. Plug the other connector in. That'll only fit one way. Then I can pull some of this cable slack out. I'm really looking for the same sort of level of slack as others. This is where the zip tie comes in. To stop the cable ever being really yanked out, just put a zip tie inside it, behind and the inside. Tie it nice and tight. Snip off the end. And that acts as a very basic strain relief. I can't really pull that out there unless I give it really massive pull. You've already got a grommet in there, so it's pretty much as waterproof with everything else in there. So now we need to do, just reassemble the thing, make sure your cable doesn't get snagged with other things. First thing I do is put the reservoir lid back on just to sort of center my position for that. I'm not going to screw it down tight. And then just put all the screws in, and then I'll show you how we can use this new switch output that we've got. So put the thing back together. Here's our tail coming out. This is just two wires. If you short these together while the thing is on, it's just like pressing that switch. So you can now do some other things. You can put it on a pressure pad. You could connect it to a PIR sensor, and then a relay contacts switching these things would work beautifully. You could also connect this straight into a relay controlled by a prop controller like a peekaboo or something. Then that can also be turning on your fog when you want it to as part of your props. Should probably point out this is mains powered, 120 volts. Please make sure, if you're going to mess about with them, make sure this is not plugged in to start with, and be very careful inside what you're touching. Try not to damage anything or get your fingers in any odd places. If you do it as like this one, this is about the third one of these I've done. They're all very similar. You should have no problems. You can then control the thing remotely. Okay, just to show you one idea of what you can do with the wires. There's a fogger. Just put a little bit in him. Just test him off. You can see he's going to squirt out a little bit. And just to show you, these are just wired across that switch. Do exactly the same. All I'm doing, look, just shorting them together. So what does that mean? You can put it on things. This is a pressure plate. DIY pressure plate. It's basically made two bits of cardboard around the edges, and then silver foil inside. Listen, you can hear the metal silver foil. So to use this, all I need to do is basically just wire into these two terminals, and I'll be able to have a pressure switch plate to operate the fogger. So I'll just wire this up now. So put the two wires into here. These are connected to the two sides of the thing. And you'll see now when I push down on the pressure plate, the fog comes out. So you've basically taken a simple fogger, which would only go off with the remote control or when you press this button, to something that you can control more easily. You can put this on a long wire and have a hand-mounted switch to turn the thing on and off, or you could connect it to the contacts of a relay, something like this. And then you could have some sort of other intelligence, maybe a PIR, to turn the fogger on and off. So it's a quick basic tutorial on how to just wire out the fogger, and hopefully that was useful. If so, please subscribe. Okay, so let's make a simple PIR relay trigger that can trigger the fog machine. So when somebody walks up to it, it's going to give them a blast of the fog. So we've got two basic components. One is a PIR sensor, one is a relay. Now you can get ones with cables and stuff. These are just ones I've had lying around. The PIR sensor is one you can adjust sensitivity and trigger time. you can put little cables on the back of it, either soldered, or you know, you can get these. If you don't want to solder, you can get these sort of cables. These are called DuPont connectors. You get females and males. You can get packs of them on Amazon pretty cheap. I just prefer to solder everything. If you want to know what pins they are, take the diffuser off the front and look, VCC out and ground. So it actually tells you what the pin out of the thing is on there. You don't even have to look it up, and then that just plugs in afterwards. You can keep that in with a bit of hot glue if you're in a situation where it falls off a lot. Now for the relay, you want one that is going to be compatible with the trigger of this one. So this type of sensor here, we're going to work out, does the signal go high or low when it triggers. So to do that, I'm going to hook it up to a power supply, which is what I've got here, and then we're going to look via the oscilloscope, you know, what the signal does when it's triggered. Okay, so we've got a PIR sensor wired up to the 5-volt power supply, and the output's going to a small oscilloscope. Now it sits at 0 volts for this particular type, and then when I trigger it, detected me, oh, went up high. Did you see that? Goes up high. I've got the sensitivity set really sensitive, so it picks me up even, well, you can't even see my hand, it's 60 degrees out. And also the timer I've got set really short, so the thing goes off only about 2 seconds or less. You can actually adjust that on here. This little pot here, the sensitivity, which I have on full, and then this one here is the time of the pulse output. So I've got that on the minimum. So if I stretch that out just a little bit, and then we let the thing go down and try and re-trigger it. There you go. So we've now got the thing re-triggering. It's going to stay on for, I don't know, around 10 seconds, something like that. You can adjust it and fine tune it as required. So the next thing to do is hook it up to a relay. Now the type of relay you really want is one that has got not just direct connections, but some sort of little chip on. The little chip is an opto isolator. What that really means for this type of application anyway, is it's going to allow a really quite small control current to turn on the opto isolator, which will flick the relay on. There you go, and it's just gone off, and I've now re-triggered it. Now that means there's very little loading on this PIR sensor. It can't provide very much current, so that's what you want. And this one also has a jumper on. You can make this active high or active low triggering, and again, really useful. In this case, we want it active high triggering. Other types of sensors, you might want it the other way around. So all we need to do is connect these 3 wires here into the input side, into the power, ground and input, and then when we wave our hand in front of it like that, we should get the relay to come on. When the relay comes on, we can put the fog machine on. So I'll wire that up and give that a go. So here I've wired the PIR to the relay. I've actually soldered the wires underneath because, you know, I love a bit of soldering, and that's enabled me to use the power pins of the thing to actually connect to. I'll show you a close-up. And if I go near it, it triggers, and you see the little red light on this particular one will come on. That will close some relay contacts. So all I need to do now is connect these 2 wires of my fog machine into the normally open contacts. And then as soon as we get our trigger on our PIR, we'll get our fog. Okay, so I'm wired up. It's actually just triggered. So I've just turned it off. Now when I trigger it, like this, we should get a good 10 seconds or so of fog come out. But of course, it's going to be dependent on whether your fog machine is ready to go or not. So if I press this manual button on here, you can see I'm getting no fog out, because it's not actually ready yet. Its green light is not on. So although the thing is triggering, the little weedy little fog machine is not actually ready to go yet. So we have to wait until this green light comes on before it's actually going to squirt any fog out. You know, it's just one of the nature of using one of these cheap fog machines. But the basics are here. So what I'm going to do is show you a close-up of what I've done with the wiring to give you an idea of how to do this. Okay, so here's a close-up of the setup. On the PIR, we've got the power, the signal and the ground wires, and those are connecting. I've soldered them on the back. They could go into these terminal blocks here. I'm sorry, it keeps losing focus. Which are also labeled DC plus for red, DC minus for the black, and the signal is actually this bottom on the orange. And what I did here was I put in 5 volts on this pin, 0 volts that one, and then we've got an active high trigger listed just here, and then the 2 output pins for the common and normally open go off to the fog machine. And that's all you need to make a PIR relay controlled fog machine.